The little girl's eyes found his across the crowded mall, and in that moment, Jake Collins knew his life would never be the same. What he couldn't possibly know was that taking her small, trembling hand would lead him straight into the path of the most powerful woman in the country and unearth a secret that had been buried for 8 long years. If you think this is just another heartwarming reunion story, I promise you'll need tissues for what happens next. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe now because the twist coming in this true story left millions speechless. Jake Collins wiped down the last table at Brewster's Cafe, his shoulders aching from another 12-hour shift. At 34, his life had settled into a predictable rhythm: work, home to his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, sleep, repeat. The cafe job wasn't glamorous, but it offered flexible hours that allowed him to be there when Lily got home from school, a priority since his wife, Marie, had died from cancer 3 years ago. "You heading out, Jake?" his manager called from behind the counter. "Yeah, just need to grab a few things at the mall for Lily's science project before I pick her up from my sister's," Jake replied, untying his apron. The Westfield Mall was crowded for a Thursday afternoon. Jake moved quickly through the throngs of shoppers, mentally calculating how much time he had before he needed to collect Lily. That's when he noticed the small figure standing alone near the fountain, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Dark curls framed a heart-shaped face, her blue dress rumpled and slightly damp at the hem. Jake glanced around, expecting to see a frantic parent searching nearby, but no one seemed to be looking for her. He approached carefully, kneeling down to her level. "Hi there, are you lost?" The girl nodded, her bottom lip trembling. "I can't find my nanny." "What's your name?" Jake asked gently. "Sophia," she whispered. "Well, Sophia, I'm Jake. Would you like me to help you find your nanny or your parents?" She nodded again, a tear sliding down her cheek. Jake offered his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. Her small fingers curled trustingly around his, and something shifted in his chest, a protective instinct he'd only ever felt with Lily. What Jake didn't realize as he led Sophia toward the security office was that security cameras were capturing their every move, footage that would soon be scrutinized by a team of private investigators and broadcast across every major news network in the country. At the security office, the guard took down Sophia's information. She knew her full name, Sophia Grace Montgomery, but couldn't remember her phone number or address. She explained that her nanny, Claudia, had been shopping with her when Sophia had stopped to look at a toy display. When she turned around, Claudia was gone. "Do you know your mom or dad's phone number?" the guard asked. Sophia shook her head. "Mommy is very busy. She's away on her big airplane." Jake stayed with Sophia while security made announcements over the mall intercom. An hour passed with no response. The guard mentioned calling Child Protective Services, and Jake saw fear flash in Sophia's eyes. "I can stay with her a bit longer," Jake offered. "My daughter's with my sister anyway. Maybe we could get her something to eat while we wait." The guard looked relieved. After taking Jake's information and making a copy of his ID, he agreed to call Jake's cell if anyone came looking for Sophia. At the food court, Sophia picked at a plate of chicken nuggets while Jake called his sister to explain the situation. "You always were a sucker for strays," his sister teased. "Don't worry about Lily. She can stay here tonight if needed." As the mall prepared to close, still no one had come for Sophia. The security guard approached their table with a concerned expression. "CPS is backed up tonight. They won't have a placement until morning." Jake looked at Sophia's exhausted face and made a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. "I can take her for the night. I've already been background checked for my daughter's school volunteering." After a series of calls and paperwork, Jake was given temporary emergency custody until morning as he drove home with Sophia asleep in Lily's booster seat. He had no idea that across the country, a private jet was being urgently fueled for takeoff. The next morning, Jake made pancakes for both girls who had bonded instantly. Lily was thrilled to have someone to show her toys to, and Sophia seemed to bloom in the warm, chaotic environment of their small apartment. "My house doesn't have drawings on the refrigerator," Sophia observed, studying Lily's artwork with fascination. "Well, you're welcome to add some," Jake offered, sliding another pancake onto her plate. The doorbell rang just as they were finishing breakfast. Jake opened the door to find a police officer and a woman in a crisp suit who introduced herself as from Child Protective Services. "We've located Sophia Montgomery's family," the CPS worker explained. "Her mother is on her way." Jake felt an unexpected pang of loss, but nodded. "Of course, she's just finishing breakfast." "There's something else," the officer added, his expression serious. "The nanny has been arrested. She abandoned Sophia deliberately." Before Jake could process this information, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside his apartment building. Two men in dark suits emerged first, scanning the area before opening the rear door. The woman who stepped out made Jake freeze in recognition. Everyone in America would recognize Alexandra Montgomery, tech CEO, philanthropist, and one of the richest women in the world. Her face regularly graced magazine covers and news programs, her company's innovations changing the technological landscape, and apparently she was Sophia's mother. Alexandra Montgomery moved with purpose toward his door, her expression unreadable behind large sunglasses. When she removed them, Jake was struck by her eyes, the exact same shade of deep blue as Sophia's. "Where is my daughter?" she asked, her voice controlled but tight with emotion. "She's inside," Jake replied, stepping back to let her enter. "She's safe. She's been very brave." Alexandra's composure cracked slightly at his words. She moved past him into the apartment, stopping when she saw Sophia at the kitchen table with Lily. "Mommy!" Sophia cried, jumping down and running to her mother. Alexandra kneeled, gathering her daughter into a fierce embrace. For a moment, the billionaire CEO was just a terrified mother reunited with her child. Jake felt like an intruder witnessing their private reunion. When Alexandra finally stood, still holding Sophia's hand, she turned to Jake with an intensity that made him nervous. "Thank you for taking care of her," she said formally. "My team will ensure you're compensated for your trouble." "It wasn't any trouble," Jake replied honestly. "She's a wonderful little girl." Something flickered across Alexandra's face, surprise perhaps, or assessment. She glanced around the modest apartment, taking in the mismatched furniture, the school photos of Lily, the general lived-in warmth of the place. "Nevertheless, I'm grateful." She handed him a business card. "If you'll send any expenses to this email, my office will handle it immediately." Jake wanted to refuse, but sensed it would only make an awkward situation more uncomfortable. He accepted the card, noticing that it had only her name and an email address, no title, no company name, the card of someone who needed no introduction. As Alexandra prepared to leave with Sophia, the little girl broke away and ran back to Lily, giving her a hug. Then, to Jake's surprise, she came to him and wrapped her arms around his legs. "Thank you for the pancakes, Mr. Jake," she said solemnly. Jake kneeled. "You're very welcome, Sophia. Take care of yourself, okay?" Alexandra watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. As they left, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, something beyond the simple act of helping a lost child. He had no idea how right he was. 3 days later, Jake was closing up the cafe when a black SUV pulled up outside. His heart jumped to his throat when Alexandra Montgomery stepped out, this time alone. "Mr. Collins, do you have a moment?" Jake nodded, gesturing to a table. "Can I get you anything? Coffee?" "No, thank you." She sat, her posture perfect, hands folded on the table. "I wanted to speak with you personally, not through assistants or lawyers." Jake sat across from her, suddenly aware of his wrinkled work shirt and the coffee stain on his sleeve. "Sophia hasn't stopped talking about you and your daughter," Alexandra began. "She's asked repeatedly when she can see you again." "She's welcome any time," Jake said automatically. "Lily's been asking about her, too." Alexandra studied him for a long moment. "I've had you investigated, Mr. Collins." Jake blinked in surprise. "Excuse me?"
I needed to know who had spent time with my daughter. It's nothing personal. And what did you find? Jake asked, unsure whether to be offended or amused. That you're exactly what you appear to be, a widower raising his daughter alone, a hard worker with no criminal record, well-liked by neighbors, financially struggling but managing. She delivered these facts without judgment. In short, a good man. I'm not sure how to respond to that, Jake admitted. Alexandra took a deep breath. There's something I need to tell you, something that may be difficult to hear. The intensity of her gaze made Jake's stomach tighten with apprehension. 8 years ago, I was in a serious relationship with a man named Thomas Reeves. We were young, ambitious. When I became pregnant, it was unexpected. Thomas didn't want children. He believed they would interfere with our careers. Jake listened, confused about why she was sharing this personal history. I disagreed.